Hi everyone, it's Kim. Thanks for joining me. I want to share with you a new set of dog and cat stamps from AALL Create, and we first saw these when we went to Creativation, and we also had the pleasure of meeting the gentleman that is the founder and creative director for AALL Create, Abs Abed. Very interesting person to hear his philosophy on why he did certain things with the company and why he has all spelled out as AALL. Very interesting person. When I got home, I was doing a little research on him, and I discovered that the person that created this stamp, it's designed by Atour de Moi, if I'm saying that correctly, that happens to be Ab's alter ego, his alter creative ego. So he goes by Abs on his business card, but he is really a tour de moi, and he created all of these stamps that we're going to look at today. I wish I had known that at the time that I met him, but I know that now, and that explains a little bit about why these are so great, why I love them so much. There's 3 dogs and 3 cats. So let's take a look at these. There's a lot of other stamps included besides just the animal. I'll go through these and then we're going to take a look at some samples. So this you can see on the back side the stamps, and there's a color photo on one side and there is also a color photo on the other side. Same items but colored a little differently. So that's good when you go to color them to give you some ideas. So this first one is called Wacky Wolf Tails. And we'll go through the dogs first. I love this guy. I think I love his teeth and his tongue hanging out. This is called the Rough Life. And again, different elements to use either with him or if you want to mix and match. This little guy is called Skyline Sniffs. And then for the kitties, let's start with this one, Mischief Meow. And again, some great other elements to use. This one here is called Grumpy Traveler. And then the final kitty is Curious Roofer. So let's take a look at some of the samples I came up with for this. And the fact that I had to color them in, I really had to stop and think about how I was going to do that because I'm not this great colorist, but I knew I could find different ways to make it work. So let me share with you some of my experiments and a couple things that I was reminded about because it's been quite a while since I've just done stamps on my cards. So we're going to start out with this one. This is Skyline Sniffs. And on this one, I just used the dog figuring. I didn't do anything else. All of my backgrounds I dug out from my background stash. This is a better press plate from Spellbinders, but then I was able just to simply attach the dog and keep it simple. This one is watercolored in, so I just stamp out the dog and watercolored it in. And I'm going to share something with you in a minute about if your watercolor kind of makes your marks disappear or they get kind of white, just depending on the medium that you're using to color them in, what we can do. So I'm going to set this one aside and then tell you what I did with this one versus what I quickly learned how to do, make it a lot simpler. I have the same dog, and this time I thought, if I don't want to color them, I don't need a specific color. This dog is simply stamped on paper. Then I took a couple of markers, Sharpie markers, light colors, and I just did the eyes, the nose, the tongue, and then the collar, and then the little license tag there. So I didn't have to make this difficult. And again, if I have a marker that kind of deletes some of my lines, colors over them so that I can't see my lines, we're going to talk about what to do there. But this was very simple. This was a background I already had die cut out. This is a background die from Spellbinders, again, because it was already done. I didn't go back and dig out that collection. And Hello Friend, I know, is also from Spellbinders, but I don't know what die set. So if you have stuff already cut out and you could just add one little stamped element, dig them out and use them up. And again, this guy was so easy. So I can make him colored or just stamp him out on white paper with black ink. For your cat lovers, let's look at a kitty cat here. So this cat is from Mischief Meow, and I did use the chair element. When I first started these out, I just kind of did all the animals, and then I thought as I'm putting them together, I went back and pulled out some of these other pieces. Most of mine are stamped on white paper, colored, and cut out. For me, that was easiest. I didn't want to stamp it on a piece of paper, like say white paper, color it, and then have to try to figure out what was I going to do for the background. So for me, it was easiest to stamp, color, cut out, and then adhere to a card base. Now, let's look at some of the hair. This guy has a lot of hairs sticking out, and who wants to cut around all those? Not me. So what I did, and this was already embossed, this background was already embossed, I put the card base in my stamping platform so I could have more than one chance at this, lined up this cat, lined the stamp up where I wanted the cat, and I just stamped and pressed this down really good into this embossed piece of paper. And again, I already had it embossed, so I thought I'm just going to go for it. But I was able to get those hairs transferred, so when I trimmed out the cat, I could just trim along the outer edge. I wasn't trying to go around all these little hairs that are sticking out. So the edge of the cat is basically straight, and just glued it down on top of the stamped image. Over here with the chair and this cat, again, I stamped it on white paper. I used, this one is, I believe, watercolored, and this one I think I just used ink. Actually, on both of these, I used Distress ink. I take that back. So I have a little brush here. This is an eyeliner brush from Wet n Wild. I use this a lot, so I could just pick up some ink and I just could go in here and do this with my ink. Since Distress ink is fairly translucent, I wasn't too worried about making some of my lines disappear. And then the eyes, I did use a marker. And then if I got off a little bit, I just take a black, real fine tip. This is like a jelly kind of pen. And I could go in and just put those lines back in there like around the eyes, kind of clean that up if I made a mess of that. You might wonder why I have these claw marks up here. If you're a cat owner, you probably know what the cat can do to your upholstery. And when I was putting this chair on, I could see that the cat had ripped into the upholstery of the chair. So I thought, I know I have a die from Tim Holtz from way back when, from Halloween one year, with claw marks. And this is called claw marks. So I thought, what better place to use this than with a cat? So that's why the top of my embossing folder there has cut out. The embossing folder hopefully sort of matches the upholstery of the chair. So that's the explanation behind the claw marks on this card. When I did this, I want to show you here. When I stamped this out and colored it with the watercolors, a lot of times this is what happens. So I'm going to have you look on the left-hand side of this. On the left-hand side is, you can see how I kind of colored or painted over my lines. So that doesn't look very good. So what I did on this one and this one, I went back with my pen and I just kind of drew those lines back in. And this one, there was quite a bit to do, and this one, not so much. But I knew there was an easier way. However, when I first stamped all these out, I just stamped them out, stamped out a couple of each dog or each cat, took my stamp off my platform, so I wasn't able to go and stamp back over it. So I learned quickly to make life a little easier. And when I did some of these other pieces here, the other stamps, let's find this one here. I pulled off several. The street light and this barrel and the dog bone all come from this stamp set. So if I was going to color these, I'm like, okay, if I watercolor them, I don't want to have to go in and make all those lines again. So here's one that's been watercolored. You can see where, it's kind of messy looking. This cat here, how much of the black lines, and I don't want it go back in and have to do this. I can, but that's very time consuming. So what I did is I stamped this out a couple times, and we're going to see some other finished ones, but I left these stamps on here. I did not take them off. And now what I'm going to do after I watercolor this, and some of you probably have already seen this in action, I'm going to put this back in here, and I want to make sure I get it back just like it was originally. And I have everything tucked over into this corner. And I'm actually going to take this piece of tape off and just sort of tape this side down and hold this side down. My paper kind of curls after I watercolor it, but I still should be able to get that in there. And this is where I want to be really accurate after taking the time to watercolor it. I'm going to take my ink pad again. I'm going to ink up these stamps. And my table isn't quite big enough to pull this whole thing off, but let me ink these up. I did take my tree off. You'll see a tree here, but I finally decided I was not going to hand trim, fussy cut around a tree. So let me ink this up. And then just depending on the pressure I give it, I may have to do it twice. But I'm going to make sure that's in place, set this down, and really rub this good. And unfortunately, when I did my first dogs like this, I just stamped them, picked it up, moved on to the next one. So that's why I could not go back and do this, because there's no way that I could get this line back up. Okay, and I may have to do this again, but that gives you a much better idea of how easy it is for me to go back, ink up those stamps again, press it down, and now look at that cat. Totally different from what he was before. Now I can just trim around this. And I will ink that up and give that another good press. So like my can improve that look a little bit. But what an easy way to re-ink over the top after we've colored them and bring all those lines back so that we're not having to go in there and do this. We can do it, but it's time consuming. This guy, I'll do that and finish him off. But in the future, I will do what I just showed you, leave those stamps on your stamp positioner and go from there. So let's meet a few more of the characters. Let's meet the wacky wolf tails now. So this guy, I've got a few other pieces from him, and I did mix and match. So the can came from another set here. Let's see if I can find that real quick. That came from the cat set, Grumpy Traveler. So if you have a variety of these, you can certainly mix and match the pieces. The background was an embossed piece of black paper that I took patina wax that I've had done for ages. And I thought, he looks okay on that. But these guys, I did the same thing what we just did, where I watercolored them, stamped again so I could get that black line back, and then I just fussy cut them out. And really, it wasn't that horrible to fussy cut them out. I wouldn't want to be doing 100 of these at one time. But if I make 1 or 2 cards for specific people, it's not that cumbersome to fussy cut. Let's now meet this guy. I love those teeth and that tongue hanging out. And this is the Rough Life. He's got some great elements as well. He is watercolored. And so I did the same thing where I watercolored him and then stamped over him again. I left the stamp in my positioner, and then I trimmed him out. And then if I still need to touch up something, I've got my good old pen. The eyes are from a Sharpie marker. I have a real light blue color that I just love to use for my eyes. Then the background paper is from 49 and Market Rust and Revs. And the barbecue and the grass is from their laser cut elements. I just keep using these because I'm just finding that they go so well with so many different things. So even though these guys look maybe kind of grungy or whatnot, I made them grungy in this one, but you don't have to make them grungy. You can make them, like we did at the very beginning, very simple and sweet looking. Just whatever style that appeals to you. And this one, even though it's watercolor, that's a pretty rough watercolor job. There's no finesse in that. So again, just get your dog or cat colored, it does not have to be perfect, because I think the expression on them is half of it. Here's another way we can color these. I had some paper that from the ink drop pads. So this is just the background of one to show you. And I stamped on top of it. So I haven't done anything more with this dog except stamp. This one, I stamped on top, and then I thought I'm going to add just a little bit of color in. So I took my little eyeliner brush, or if you have it, whatever tiny kind of stiff brush, took some distress ink, and then I could just kind of go in here. If I wanted to add a little color, a little contrast, I could do that. Again, the tongue, the nose, and the eyes are all a Sharpie marker. And then here's some more of those elements from the different stamp sets that I watercolored and stamped again in my Misty, and then I took them out and trimmed them out. But there, I didn't have to go back through with my black marker because I made the stamp do all the work again. Now this time I did stamp in the background, but I did not color. So I was getting a little braver, added a little more. I did lay out my main pieces, and then I took the stamps, for instance, like these bottles here, and I just marked, I laid everything out, and then so I knew where to mark or where to stamp this. I just made a little bitty pencil mark above there and a little one on the side so I could get the bottles and the mouse lined up. And same thing here, I kind of positioned the, let's see, I think this was this building, I think, behind it here. And I laid that stamp down, laid the dog and the light pole on top, and just kind of marked that so I knew where it would be. It doesn't have to be perfect because most of it's hidden, but it does give that a little bit of interest. And then for the last one, I got really, really brave. And I kind of combined several things here. So the final cat that we're going to look at today is Curious Roofer, this little one here with the little bird singing on. Now, if there's something that you don't want, say you don't want that bird because it is part of the stamp, just don't ink it up. I'm going to go back to this dog real quick. I did not want this on the top of him when I stamped him out, so I just stamped the dog and did not stamp that, ink that up, this top part of the stamp. So if you want to omit something, just don't ink it up. That's easy enough to do. So for this one, I've got the pot, the cat, and another little kitty. I stamped these all on an ink drops pad. So I picked out a piece of paper out of this. So these are lighter colors, and I knew I could, color over it. So I just picked one of these out, stamped on it, trimmed it out. Again, this cat has some kind of wild hairs coming off, and that bird, I did not want to trim that bird and those notes out. So I did what I did before. I laid everything out. I stamped the cat in black ink. So then when I cut the cat out of the colored paper, I only had to do it real close around the edges. I'm not trying to cut out his claws and all these little hairs. I stamped this oven that's on fire, and the background is another ink drops pad. So this one was sort of a grungy look, but it was light enough. I knew that I could color on this with an alcohol marker is what I used for this because I had a little bigger selection of colors. So this is colored with alcohol markers. This kitty was on the colorful ink drops pad, and I just trimmed that cat out. I did stamp it. After I stamped this, I stamped this cat, and this mouse. Originally, I was going to trim the mouse out, but look at how little he is. So I thought, I just need to stamp the mouse and color him on my background paper. Added all my other elements. I did color the bird on the background paper. So really, this one went by pretty quickly because by now I kind of figured out how I could easily color. And this one, the paper did all the work for these two cats. So that gives us an introduction to all of our kitties. This one we'll meet next time because he was on my Misty. I didn't want to pull him off. We'll have to look at that cat next time in its own little scene. and he's kind of got an attitude, so I'm sure we can come up with some good card for him. So, even though these are stamps, you can color them. You don't have to color them, or you can stamp them on colored paper to get you started. But the point is to have fun. These really are great stamps. I love the expressions of the animals, and you can mix and match. Super simple to much more complex, just kind of however you want to use them. And if you've got other elements from other products, combine them with those as well. So I hope this has given you a smile today to look at all of our animal friends. And I thank you for joining me, and I'll see you again in a future video.